There is a tradition to study a chapter of Pirke Avot each Shabbat from Passover to Shavuot. This week I want to look at the very first Mishnah in the book. It teaches the history of the transmission of Jewish law. Moses received it from Sinai and passed it to Joshua. Joshua gave it to the elders, and then they gave it to the prophets, and finally the members of the Great Assembly. The history lesson concludes with three statements: be cautious in judgment, establish many pupils, and make a fence around the Torah. I'd like to examine that final statement a bit more. Make a fence around the Torah. This idea is central to the foundation of much of Jewish law. Most of what we think of as halakha falls into this category. It's a protective fence, a barrier established to prevent us from violating a biblical mitzvah. For example, on Shabbat, one is not allowed to write. And the rabbis added to this, forbidding one to even hold a pen, lest they forget about Shabbat and accidentally write with it. The same holds true for other objects whose purpose is not permitted on Shabbat. On Pesach, the Torah forbids eating chametz, yet Sephardim eat kitniot, such as rice, while Ashkenazi do not. The custom to abstain from kitniot, like rice, is another example of a fence. Much of Jewish law is comprised of these fences, rabbinic commandments intended to protect their biblical counterparts. By definition, they are stricter, often more difficult than the actual commandment in the Torah. Yet for thousands of years, these protective barriers have helped us to maintain devotion to the law. Today, we want fewer limits and boundaries. Modern society calls for openness and accessibility. And yet, while these are good things, there's something to be said for fences. Perhaps society could learn something from this practice, taking extra care to protect what is most valuable to your culture, your community, and your family. This past year with COVID-19, many of you have gone beyond the basic requirements and taken stringencies to protect your own lives and those of others around you. This is what it means to build a fence, to protect something you value. Sometimes we should be inconvenienced. Sometimes things should be difficult. If what we are protecting is truly of value, then it's worth it. Today, even though society wants fewer fences, fewer restrictions, perhaps we should be careful before we tear them all down. Perhaps we should build some fences in our own lives. Fences to protect the relationships we most cherish and the values we hold dear. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach.